Employers spoke on the low absorption of corporate credit lending. What economists or analysts would say about this? Garuda Indonesia will implement new business pattern in the near future. Hello, good evening. Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of informations from business, economic, and capital market sectors. And as the pandemic is still ongoing, we will provide you the latest COVID-19 information. Please stay safe by taking some simple precautions, such as physical distancing, wearing a face mask, avoiding crowds, cleaning your hands, and having less mobility. With me, Wicky Adrian, this is Market Headlines. Employers spoke on the low absorption of corporate credit lending. Recently, banking sector's concentration is more focused on maintaining credit quality rather than expanding the loan distribution to high-risk sector. Chairman of the Indonesian Employers Association, or APindo, Haryadi Sukamdhani, says that the low absorption of corporate loans is in line with the conditions that forced banking sector to still calculate the loan risk. According to him, companies that are not affected by the COVID-19 pandemic actually enjoy corporate credit from banks, considering the risks are low. Meanwhile, almost none of the affected companies received corporate credit. Based on data from the Financial Services Authority, or OJK, the performance of working capital loans in the country has experienced negative growth since 2020. Until March 2021, working capital loans disbursed amounted to 2,465 trillion, or grew minus 3.8% month to month. In addition, investment loans have also experienced negative growth since 2020. In March 2021, investment loans in the country were worth 1,461 trillion, or grew negatively by minus 2.4% month to month. In extraordinary conditions like now, banking sector's concentration is more focused on maintaining credit quality rather than lowering low interest rates. This is reflected in the auction of government securities, which reached 90 trillion rupiah, some of which came from banks because banks wanted to find safety zone by buying instruments rather than extending credit. IDX Channel reports. Yes, to discuss more about the slow distribution on credit in corporate segment, we're connected to Joshua Pardede, Chief Economist of Permata Bank. Hello, sir. How are you?
How are you?
Thank you very much. I'm good. Thank you very much for joining us here on Market.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, talking about the topic that we're going to talk about, of course, the credit distribution on corporate segment. So what is your point of view on this? What is the cause of the slow absorption or slow distribution of the credit on the corporate segment?
I think when we're talking about the banking loans, so there are two parts, basically from demand side and from the supply side. As we know that the economy just started to improve in the second quarter of this year, and also the demand from the private consumption and investment continue to increase. There will be some another improvement in demand in credits. But when the economy still relatively slowing, like we expect in the third quarter, the demand on credit is relatively remain weak. On the other hand, from the supply side, like I mentioned earlier, because of the activity in some sectors, particularly for hotel, restaurant, tourism-related sectors, which have been significantly affected by the mobility restrictions implemented by the government, the capacity utilization is remains low and low. So basically, there is an increasing credit risk for banks to lend credits to those sectors. So basically, currently banks still optimize their intermediary function by calculating which sectors there are relatively have low credit risk, and also on the other at the same time the credit growth on those sectors still relatively low. So I think those sectors or those factors are the biggest contributor to the how big the demand in credits.
There's two main indicators or two main reasons why the credit distribution on corporate segment is very low, because it is caused by the demand, which is very weak, and of course the risk itself that had been occurred lately caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. So how do you see the limited growth of credit in corporate sector affecting the growth in banking sector itself?
So basically, if I'm mistaken, the contribution to the from corporate segment to the total credits, I think is relatively more than 30%. Yeah. So I think the contribution is relatively very significant to the total credit growth. But again, because some sectors in corporate segments, for example, like manufacturers and also some wholesale trade, and also hotel, restaurant, as I mentioned earlier, those sectors are heavily affected by this pandemic, because of the mobility restrictions, and again because the banks also currently they're trying to offset the slowing demand in corporate segment, and also they try to optimize by lending to the other segments or consumer segments. But again, related to this corporate again, in addition to low demand and also higher credit risk, I think we need to also address about the needs of the financing needs, from the some sectors also. Some sectors we know that related to the commodities, because of the higher commodity prices, some sectors or some corporates benefit from these conditions. So actually they don't need financing to operate to run their business. So basically the demand is relatively low, and also because some corporates currently they can get financing from other institutions. For example, like when the corporates can issue corporate bonds or issue other securities product, so they can still achieve financing from other institutions other than banks.
Okay, so I really want to know about the risk of distributing credit during this difficult time, during this pandemic time, the time when there's a lot of companies being affected by the COVID-19. How huge the risk if bank insist to distribute the credit on this segment?
Yeah, because as I mentioned earlier, that the capacity utilization in average of the industry in every sectors is not that high. So basically the capacity utilization is remain below than normal situations. So from the corporate perspective, when the production is not that high, so why do we have to ask from financing from the banks? And from the banks' perspective also, they need to even to calculate any kind of risk mitigation or the amount of loss, probability of default. They need to calculate everything related to the credit risk. And as matter of fact, that the loan at risk, meaning that the collectibility too, in industry is currently relatively high, around 20%.
Okay.
Although the NPL, non-performing loans, still relatively stable around 3.2, but the loan at risk is relatively high. So basically, banks need to manage their credit risk appetite in order to manage the loan at risk, because the loan at risk, if the condition worsens, it will become as non-perform loan. So basically, this situation is very complicated for banks in order to expand their assets, expand to their financing, because the credit risk is relatively high. Yeah, although OJK already implemented the restructuring credit policies. Yeah, I think it helps banks. Yeah, but I think the thing is that for some sectors there are still highly risk. Yeah, the risk is relatively high. I think the banks prefer to lend their financing to other less risky asset or less risky sectors.
Because nowadays banking sector focused on the quality on the credit itself. Okay, we're going to have another session about this topic on the second segment. We will have another break session, and now we are going to get into the commercial break. Stay tuned on Market Headlines. We'll be right back.
Kini aplikasi mClears hadir di handphone Anda untuk memudahkan transaksi Anda. Informasi aktivitas clearing dan penjaminan tidak lagi hanya dapat diakses melalui komputer di kantor Anda, melainkan dapat diakses di mana saja dan kapan saja dalam genggaman Anda. Fitur-fitur mClears. Equity clearing dan settlement adalah fitur di mana Anda dapat melihat posisi kewajiban settlement anggota clearing hingga nilai alternate case settlement serta informasi gagal bayar. Risk management adalah fitur di mana Anda dapat melihat posisi trading limit, kolateral, MKBD, portofolio harian, risk charge anggota clearing dan kombinasi, serta nilai minimum cash collateral. Derivatif adalah fitur di mana Anda dapat melihat posisi trading limit, margin call, dan informasi clearing derivatif. Terkait pinjam-meminjam efek, terdapat fitur mengenai borrowing information dan lendable pool information, serta lending revenue dan borrowing fee. Serta menu lain yang menampilkan informasi mengenai haircut, risk charge saham, dan nilai harga penyelesaian harian dan harga penyelesaian final. Selain itu, Anda juga dapat mengakses fitur pengumuman, peraturan, dan informasi layanan KPEI pada aplikasi mClears. Download aplikasi mClears di App Store atau Google Play Store. Lakukan registrasi user Anda dengan menggunakan alamat email berdomain resmi yang sesuai dengan anggota clearing Anda. Setelah registrasi, Anda akan diberikan kode OTP di email Anda untuk verifikasi, dan aplikasi mClears Anda siap untuk digunakan. Anda dapat mengakses seluruh menu pada aplikasi mClears dengan melakukan aktivasi berlangganan premium yang dapat dilakukan dengan memilih menu Get Premium. Download aplikasinya sekarang, lakukan registrasi, dan dapatkan kemudahan dalam genggaman tangan Anda. Kemudahan informasi KPEI dalam genggaman Anda.
Welcome back to Market Headline, and I will have another session of discussing about the topic about the low absorption of corporate credit lending with Mr. Joshua Pardede, Chief Economist of Permata Bank. So during this limited growth in credit distribution on the corporate segment, what is actually banks can do during this time? Hello, sir.
So when we assess the credit assessment or calculate the credit risk, we are taking into account the condition in the economy, GDP by productions. There are some sectors that have already recovered, but other sectors still relatively affected by the pandemic. So the strategy is that first we optimize the credit restructuring to follow the OJK policies, and secondly we try to calculate the credit risk on several sectors which the performance in terms of GDP still relatively better, compared to other sectors. For example, like agriculture, some manufacturing, and also related to the construction probably, and also service sectors that are very booming, during the pandemic, namely ICT, information and communication, and also health services. And from the manufacturing sectors itself, there are some manufacturers that are still outperform compared to other manufacturing. For example, like food and beverages, and also petrochemical and also pharmaceutical. And the third one is related to the downstreaming in nickel, related to the basic metals manufacturers. So I think those sectors, we think that those sectors are still outperforming, compared to other sectors. So we try to assess the credit demands from those sectors and optimize the lendings, to the sectors. Which the point is that we find the credit quality which is better, while at the same time the financing on those sectors is relatively low. So basically, I think those sectors are accounted as the faster recovery sectors. Okay. So I think those sectors are the strategy to lend the credits.
So what do you think about the effort of banks when they put their money on the quote unquote the saver sector, such as put their money on the state bond? What do you think about these efforts?
Yeah, the thing is that the cost of fund in banking sector is relatively expensive. Although the BOPO continue to decrease in line with the banking digitalization transformation, but at some point, although the demand on credit is still relatively low, but you can see that the third-party fund growth is double-digit currently. So basically, you still have to pay the interest, for the depositors, and also for the savers, saving accounts, current accounts, and the time deposit, And so when you cannot lend the third-party fund, so you have to manage the excess liquidity in the banking sectors. So the banking sectors search for the savers investments, which is the government bonds. Yes. And if you look at why the banking sectors also buy the government bonds, because we think that we also contribute to the economic recovery, by buying or by placing the fund to the government bonds. So I think it will finance the gap, in the fiscal deficits. So basically, in order to finance the economic recovery program, for health, for budget, for social protection program, and other incentive or other policies, I think we are also contributing to that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, I still have a lot of questions to be asked to you, but too bad we have a very limited time. Mr. Joshua Pardede, Chief Economist of Permata Bank, thank you very much for your elaborate explanation on the
topic. Have a nice day.
Very soon. Have a nice evening, and stay with us on Market Headlines because we'll be right back after the break. Is more focused on maintaining credit. Seiring meluasnya cakrawala investasi di tengah pasar saham yang dinamis. Analisa mendalam diperlukan untuk menemukan saham berorientasi value yang menghasilkan kinerja yang tinggi. IDX Channel akan mengulas isu pasar dan pergerakan saham terkini. Saksikan ulasannya bersama analis terpercaya hanya di IDX Channel.
Presiden Joko Widodo memiliki optimisme yang tinggi terkait dengan proses vaksinasi nasional yang sedang dilakukan saat ini. Bagaimana tanggapan dari pengusaha dengan angka ini?
Tentu membuat kita harus lebih berhati-hati.
Langkah apa yang tepat dilakukan untuk bisa meningkatkan pemahaman masyarakat?
Komunikasi publik adalah kunci. Jadi kita harus bisa menunjukkan kepada masyarakat bahwa vaksinasi itu penting.
Aku pengen budaya kita masuk ke luar negeri semuanya.
We're in the last segment at the Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement earlier today. JCI was opened at the level of 5,983.3, and then approaching the closing time of the first session, the index was on the level of 6,011.06. Then the index was showing weakening or strengthening trend by the second session closing time. Index was closed at the level of 6,030.77. In short, JCI went up 0.64%. And next, we're going to see the sectoral movement. Leading the dynamics of today's trading, we got infrastructure as the leader of the strengthening trend that went up 1.63%. Cyclip went up 1.21%. And we got industry as the leader of the weakening trend that went down 0.68%. And energy went down 0.21%. And moving on to top gainers and top losers, here are the key highlights from today's trading session. Hope went up 34.59% to the level of 179 per share. IMES went up 24.6% to the level of 1,165 per share. Agro went up 14.5% to the level of 2,290 per share. BABP went up 8.02% to the level of 404 per share. Meantime, the top losers for today's trading, we got Buka went down 3.35% to the level of 865 rupiah per share. Asa International went down 0.97% to the level of 5,100 rupiah per share. MDKA went down 1.12% to the level of 2,640 rupiah per share. And Adaro went down 2.32% to the level of 1,265. And we are going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. Open at the level of 14,467. Rupiah was showing a strengthening trend towards US dollar, was closed at the level of 14,419. In summary, rupiah went up 0.14%. State-owned company in aviation sector, Garuda Indonesia, will implement a new business pattern in the near future. This new business plan has been finalized and ready to be submitted to stakeholders, including government, next week. Garuda Indonesia's business philosophy will be more simple in the future. The philosophy will be used to make the company more profitable and efficient. Numbers of routes and aircrafts will be eliminated, and the number of types of aircraft will be decreased. To deal with the consequences, a court related to the reduction of the routes, GIAA will put more focus on domestic flights and cargo services, since the demand of these services are still high. In the future, GIAA will also continue to supervise the recovery of domestic and international market demand, so the number of services will be in line with the needs, and Garuda will also paying an attention on the opening of new routes that will serve Umrah and Hajj travels to Saudi Arabia, IDX Channel reports. Listed company in heavy equipment industry United Tractors is feeling optimistic on the sales of Komatsu heavy equipment segment this year. According to this, United Tractors revised its target from 2,500 to 2,600 units up to 3,000 units. In the second quarter this year, listed company in heavy equipment industry United Tractors with a stock code of UNTR recorded sales of 673 units of heavy equipment. The number increased from heavy equipment sales achievement in the same period of 2020, which has only reached 266 units. Meanwhile, during the first semester 2021, United Tractors successfully sold 1,361 units of Komatsu heavy equipment. Such sales realization increased 60% compared to the same period last year, which only reached 508 units. Although targeting high heavy equipment sales, UNTR ensured that the targets of the mining contractor, such as coal and gold mining segment, still the same as the previous year. IDX Channel reports. Improvement of coal price completely boosting the average prices of coal produced by Indo Tambang Raya Megah during first semester of 2021. ITMG recorded its coal price by $74.7 per ton.
Vaccination program during new normal implementation worldwide have supported the recovery of energy consumption. This condition has affected the increase of coal price since October last year. At the end of June this year, coal prices are at the level $131.41 per ton. Coal sales until this first semester reached 18.91% or only reached 9 million tons of coal. The number is lower if compared to sales performance in the same period last year, which reached 11.1 million tons. However, the net income of the company increased 3.72% or as much as $676.3 million, and its net profit margin also grew significantly as much as 312%. IDX Channel report.
And the news close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic, business and capital market channel. As the COVID-19 pandemic is still going on, keep protecting your family by following the health protocols, wearing face masks, keep your distance, and stay away from crowds. Wash your hands through running water, and also continue to support the vaccination program to accelerate the creation of herd immunity. I'm Wicky Adrian. Have a nice evening and stay safe.
Ingin menjalani kehidupan yang mapan dan masa depan yang sejahtera? Sikapi uang dengan bijak. Mulailah berinvestasi di pasar modal. Dengan membeli saham melalui Bursa Efek maupun perusahaan sekuritas, Anda dapat menikmati hasil keuntungan dari perusahaan-perusahaan besar yang tersedia. Pastikan Anda berinvestasi di perusahaan yang memiliki izin resmi. Cerdas mengelola, masa depan sejahtera. Otoritas Jasa Keuangan, lembaga pengawas industri jasa keuangan yang terpercaya.